Oh, good, 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 good. That's great. Anyhow, yes, as I said that I collect many things, and I mean I think in the last couple of years, Guatemala hasn't been my main focus. So I mean, sometimes when your brain doesn't actually work, thinking about it, you tend to forget important dates and important events and important covers and things like that. So I'm sorry if I actually made any mistake. And I certainly wouldn't have done, 2 years ago when I was actually working on the collection, working on the exhibit. I mean, and I'm still collecting, but there are other collections I have to develop, and then I just tend to give it less time. Anyhow, so just good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like today's meeting, it's about Guatemala airmails, which is pretty interesting for several reasons, which I shall tell you later. So now what I've got in front of me is, can you see a picture of a plane? This is the Ford Trimotor, you can see. And I am certainly not an airplane expert. Please correct me if I'm wrong about the details of this aeroplane. But you can actually, but the only interesting thing is this picture has a PAA logo on the side, and that was a plane that actually carried all the FAM routes as you probably know, they're quite important for the external mails of Guatemala in the 1930s. Okay, so I shall start. Here we go. So basically, the presentation, where there's an introductory section about the airmails of Guatemala, which is just basically an overview. And I'm not actually going into specific details about flights or whatever rates or routes. But those would maybe I'll do it in the near future or sometime. And then I would like to address why you collect Guatemala airmails. And then of course the collecting scope, the possible collection you can form, and also about something about how to exhibit airmails either locally, county or state level or APS level or even at international level. Anyway, so it's divided into several sections. So now this, obviously all of you must be familiar with this little sort of map. As you know that the country is a very mountainous area with only some flat plains right up in the north and maybe at the southern border where it borders the Pacific Ocean. And then the names of these cities. Now I'm sure that all of you would know where they are, but they're very important cities because they all have little airfields. Some of them are a little more than I think it's sort of maybe just a dusty runway or something, for small planes to land. But you can see from here that the Guatemala, which is unfortunately to share the same name as a country, but I'll call it Guatemala City, which is the main city in the center. And then you get the northern routes actually going to the forest, which is the northern part, and you get the western routes going to the Red Hulu area, and then you get the eastern routes going to Jutiapa and Zacapa area as well. So these were the early routes. So airmail is very important for the country for the reason that it's a very mountainous place and the roads are poor and often it's just muddy tracks and the trains. Well, yes, you've got a few railways going to important places, but really I think traveling by air it's very, very important, and the government actually pay a lot of attention and pours money into this mode of transport. So now that actually we just talk about a brief history. I mean, the first experimental flight was carried out by glider by this guy called Alberto de la Riva in June 1911. The reason why is because after World War I, there were lots of planes, lots of airplanes. As you know that the air war was in Europe, and after the war, I think a lot of pilots lost their jobs, and and then they went back to their own country and start developing airmail. For example, U.S. airmails and the British airmails, and they have lots of planes left over and lots of pilots trained for the job. So they think, well, why don't we carry mail by air? So I mean, that was the first, according to Goodman, that was the first experimental flight, was by a glider. So it wasn't very successful and tried several times and crashed. And then the government actually bought a couple of single engine airplanes, Beirut and Newport, from France, and carrying further flights, but both were lost in accidents and the pilots were injured. None of these early flights carried any mail. So interestingly, John Field actually reported in Stamp magazine of 30th November in 1954 that the European Theatre Company actually issued souvenir cards in connection with the demonstration flight at Aurora Airfield in March 1912. The cards were not shown. I have never seen those cards before. You guys probably might have, but there were obviously some experimental flight going on, but they never actually carried the souvenir. But the real mail actually carrying flight was the U.S. Army demonstration flights that flew from France Field in Canal Zone by 2 de Havillands and 1 Martin bomber on 4th of February 1924. And well, accordingly, only according to Goodman, there was only 28 letters carried on the flight, because the train carrying more mail for this flight was delayed. Now, thanks to David. Right? Well, okay. So, but regarding this, actually, I mean, I got to thank David actually for sending me some sort of original information about this U.S. Army demonstration flight, which I actually it was still sitting in my library, and I haven't actually had time to look through them. So maybe if I could say spend a couple of months looking at the figures, I could probably tell you more about this flight at a later date. Anyhow, so this is one of the covers. Actually, this is a return mail from Guatemala on the 18th of February, back to Balboa Heights in the Canal Zone. Okay, so that's the cover actually from the American legation. So it's obviously it is a philatelic cover, but it just maybe it's just one of these covers. But at that time there was no airmail rate, so actually they actually paid 1.25 pesos for the first 20 grams. Just the mail, surface mail to the Canal Zone. Anyway, so next you come the first incoming flight, thought to be the first incoming flight to Guatemala from Barranquilla in Colombia by Skata. And there were a number of these covers sent to different countries in Central America, to Honduras, Costa Rica, etc. And it is said that there's only about 40 covers carried. Apparently, there were a few actually forwarded from Guatemala to the USA, which I think, I mean, I'm sure David would know, it's a long envelope with registered envelope with the AR marking, and those were apparently not actually sent by air, and most of them all of them were sent by a surface mail. Anyway, so for local mail, Pitane is a northern department, and where the chico was grown for chewing gum, that could be reached by land via British Honduras, and the journey took like half a month, and depending on the season. Sometimes it rained hard, and it took much longer. So therefore, it is very important actually to develop an air route to the northern part of the country. So even direct flight, it took 4 hours from Arola, and the mail and the first mail was actually official stampless letter from the agricultural department sent, and the return flight. Well, this flight was the outgoing flight was the 28th of May, and the return flight was the 4th of June. And you can actually see there's a little cachet here, which you probably see later in some of the covers with the Premier Correo Aéreo. And right, so this is actually stampless because it's an official cover. Then, of course, if you collect airmails, you'll be very familiar, with these first flight covers carried by military planes to all these places like Santa Rosa, Quiché, and Chiquimula. These are just experimental flights, and then you can actually see the same old chop here. And some of them have a private, most of them would have like a private cachet here. It's like one of these rubber types you can buy from the shop. But they all have this in different colors, in red, in purple, in blue. And but in some of the covers do have this circular, large circular, I think it's 27 millimeter CDS. Actually, it's a cachet without the date right in the middle, which was later actually converted into a CDS with the date inserted in the middle. So this, I think, it looks like that it's made of rubber, but this is actually it's the first time that you actually see the aerial is something that like an official airmail cachet of Guatemala. So, and of course, the postage was that time was not no air postage, was just a local, 1.50 peso. And then, of course, you've got the Pan Am start coming in with flights from outside. And at first, they only carry flights northwards into USA. But from beginning from the March 16 to 17, 1930, the FAM, Foreign Airmail Routes, number 8, began to carry mail into the Central American countries like Mexico, San Salvador, Costa Rica, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and Canal Zone. And then they have a very elaborate cachet with a plane. This is it must be the Ford Trimotor, I think it was, that the PA used to carry the mail in. And then, of course, by that time, you, aside from the airmail, actually we would call it airmail fee, because it's not actually it's a postal rate at the time. It's actually additional to the normal postage, which is the Pan American Union rate, which is a free centavo stamp with additional of 15 centavo the fee, air fee. Okay, and of course you get the ubiquitous 1 cent postal tax stamp. Anyway, so you get different all different types of envelopes like that going to different countries. And next. Okay, so now we're talking about domestic airmails now. So domestic airmails happened around June, July 1930, where there were new domestic routes offered by the Compañía Nacional de Aviación, well, we call it CNA, which was a local company which signed a contract with the Guatemala Post Office to carry mail. And interestingly, I think the contract was either renewed annually or biannually, and with maybe some changes, which I'll talk about later. And they use the Hodgkinson trimotor biplane to carry the mail, and then and you get a rate. At first, you get a rate of 6 centavo, and the usual rate is the 3 centavo rate, and then again the postal tax, and there is a special hand stamp. Now, this hand stamp, interestingly, I think it may be only 1 or 2, but you could actually find it in, I think, maybe 2 or 3 different colors. But this one is black, this one is blue. I think there might be one in red. I can't remember. Maybe David knows. So what they did actually is they stamped it with this stamp, and then with the letters, with the letters to different places. For example, to Koban or to Salama or something like that, and they have different letters from where to where, the routes. And I think it's the same hand stamp, but they just have a different places where they put it on. So there's quite a lot of combinations. You can have an outgoing one and incoming one, which you could collect. Okay, so next is, of course, the FAM5 flight from Miami, going to the Puerto Barrios, which is actually it's a northern part bordering the Caribbean, the ocean, right up to north, and they have a special cachet for the first day, and also the issuance of a set of stamps, bearing the overprints. So apparently, these stamps were only officially valid for 1 day, which is actually the flight day. But I don't know. I think I have seen them used more than as aside from this day. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it might be. I think it's well, they certainly still around. But it's nice to actually introduce a set of overprinted stamps on the regular adhesives, just to celebrate the event of the FAM5 routes. So now we have the FAM8 routes going via Mexico and Townsville up to USA, and then you go to FAM5 routes through the Puerto Barrios and up to Miami. So you've got a little circle round. I think maybe there was an article. I think there is an article in EQ that I think it's Gabriel Ramirez actually wrote something about which day actually the mail actually went via the Townsville and which day it went by Miami. But he's a great researcher. He's done a lot for the airmail. So if you're interested in airmail, you should go and to look it up. All his articles in EQ. Anyway, so the third route to USA was via New Orleans. Actually opened up on the 13th of June 1943, and the returned the flight was 14th of June. So they have a special cachet here, and then the standard rate, the standard actual fee, airmail fee was 15 centavo to USA, plus the free PAPU rate, and then of course you've got the postal tax stamp again. Wow, it seems to be taking one centavo on every single letter to build the post office. Anyhow, so the first airmail stamps are very interesting. It's not really is first printed airmail stamps, but it's actually an overprint on the regular issues of 1929 and 1930. They're not specific for domestic or international airmails. You could actually find them both on domestic and international airmails, examples, and it was authorized by a decree on November 19, 1928, but was not issued until 20th May 1929. It was printed by typography, which is letterpress, on the 1924 Perkins-Bacon and the 1926 Waterloo stamp. Now, it's very interesting issue that if you look at these four are the most they are the most common stamps by Waterloo, and a large number were issued. But at the same time, a large number of stamps also printed by the Perkins-Bacon's issue, which initially, I mean, if you're not looking at the small print right at the bottom, looks exactly the same as the Waterloo printing. I mean, it's hard to distinguish. But you see, most people actually bought all these stamps, to stick on their letters and forgotten all about this one. But you can see actually the printing is slightly different. The overprint is actually slightly different. And if you look at the back particularly, and all of these have a streaky gum on the back, and the Perkins-Bacon actually is more uniform. And later on, actually, some time later, actually some dealers or collectors actually discovered that there was some difference between this one and this one, and then suddenly they realized that they actually used two different printings of the regular issues to overprint the first airmail stamps. And although there were 55,000 of the Perkins-Bacon's 15 peso stamps printed, almost 8,830 stamps were destroyed because they were by that time, other stamps have been issued and they have become invalid. So this is actually, I won't say they're very rare, but I mean, but you see majority of these stamps would be by the Waterloo, and then if you see a Perkins-Bacon, just buy it, if the dealer doesn't know. And I think it costs a bit more. And especially if you find it on cover, please grab it. if it's $9.99 on eBay. I haven't got one, so so anyhow. Anyway, so this is obviously to Rossler is a philatelic cover registered with all the values of the Waterloo set, and it actually, the overprint actually corresponded to some real rates. You see, there's a 3 centavo stamp is actually for the 50-gram commercial samples, and the 5 is for printed matter. The 15 centavo is obviously for domestic letter of up to 20 grams, and the 20 centavos for the double postcard rate. You see, each of them actually in the old days, I mean, they all corresponded to a real postage, rather than nowadays they issue stamps for basically grabbing money from collectors. So the air surcharge, these are air surcharges that the rates is in addition to the regular postage. So let's see. So this is obviously philatelic, but it's nice to have some of all the values on the single cover. Now, yes, there's some example of the usages, like the 20 centavo one, actually going abroad. Now you can see this is the same. The arrow CDS, now the date inserted, instead of just like cachet, now becomes a CDS. So this stamp actually pay for the 15 centavo airmail surcharge per 10 grams and 5 centavo UPU rate. That's the UPU rate to Germany. Okay, and then of course you've got the 1 cent tax. And then this example is quite interesting, which I can't figure out actually whether this is actually airmail or not, despite it has got an airmail surcharge on it. because I don't know whether actually you could, because there's no indication that there's the airmail, maybe a label, you know, there was originally an airmail label there and it was soaked off or fallen off or something. But, you know, that you know, it's if you add it up together, it's 3 + 3 is 6. 6 + 1 is 7 centavo. I mean, you know, so I mean, if the ML, if the domestic rate was 4 and the local rate was 3, so actually it's correct. But the thing is, where's the tax? So I mean, it's either it's underpaid airmail, or it's actually sent as local mail. I'm not sure this one. The interesting thing is it got there in 1 day, so possibly it's in airmail because it's got an airmail surcharge, and maybe you don't need to write airmail. I don't know. Maybe it's put in the airmail box. Anyway, this is just actually the three centavo stamp is actually not. It's comparatively harder to find. For example, the more common one would be the 15, because there's a lot of it is sending to Europe and the USA. And there's a lot of letters to Europe, USA, paying the 15 rate, and the 3 is really what I said was for sort of commercial papers, a newspaper. Okay, there are some errors of the stamp. You know, this is the overprint, the 15 centavo of the overprint misplaced, and this was the one misplaced, the 3 centavo misplaced sideways, and you've got a double inverted surcharge of the 20 and a double surcharge, etc. So there may be more, but yes, this one, the sideways actually is not recorded by Goodman, so there may be more. Okay, now, first they finished airmail stamp essays. Now, Michael was talking about Corinthilla. I think this set actually was, I didn't buy it, but you know, I missed it by 2 bits. But but actually, this set by Jose Guerra was actually appeared suddenly in Corinthilla sale, I mean, how delightful is it? I think it's exactly the set illustrated in Goodman, except that that's in black and white, and this is a very nice color, very colorful. And then there's another set also in Corinthilla sale, which you have the familiar stamp designed by Suarez and printed by Baron Zedek of company in, I think, light lithographic or something. And it's also got a little advertisement like Guatemala produces the best coffee in the world. So actually, you know, if you actually have a topical collection of coffee, I mean, this is one of the things that the judges will be looking for. So it's in a delightful range of colors, all in 15 centavos. But actually none of them were produced except this one, but the denomination was 6. So which I'll come to next, which is this one. Yes, this is actually the only one actually produced from the Suarez design and lithographed by Zedek. So printed in sheets of 100. There were 600 printed, and but a lot of them were actually overprinted later on in 1931 with external airmail. It's only a very few were destroyed. They were actually poorly printed. There were lots of little error spots, ring spots, etc. A double impression. Double imperf. Now, interesting that why do you get imperf? I mean, is it actually, you know, is it actually an error, or maybe it's a kind of like a color reference sheet or something? I don't know. There's not that. Well, they feel around, but there's not that common. It's interesting that is it a real error, or just somebody found some some reference sheets from the printer and just decided to sell it as an error. I think currently there is a pair of this with a misperforation, like a perforation like this, a roll perforation on eBay. If you're interested, you can check it out. I think it's from a British seller. It's a pair of imperf with, but I'm not sure whether actually those perforations are genuine or not, because if you compare to the perforations of this one, I think it's slightly different. But anyhow, if you're interested, you can check it out on eBay. So then actually, if you have enough examples, you can actually see that there's a slight color difference. They call it the rose red, but I think one is more rose red and one is more like a pale rose red shade of the same stamp. And then in May, 5th of May 1931, it was actually is a part of the set of external airmails. It was overprinted with such wording, and then of course there are errors like double impression of the original stamp, and then you've got double perforations, inverted overprint, and double overprint. In fact, I read something on Lin's News that the inverted overprint is actually, well, they say it's selling for about 20 bucks or something for a stamp, but they say it's a really good buy, and if you can find it for 20 bucks, just grab everything. I don't know why. Maybe they've got a lot. Anyway, so that is the inverted overprint of the exterior, and this is the one which is actually a double perforation on the double impression. And you can see there's double perforation there, and the impression, which is maybe a little bit difficult to see, and it's actually there's a slight doubling of the printing. And then this is, of course, it's a double overprint, with the second overprint is quite faint, like a side by side. So, then Guatemala is actually an interesting place that they actually issued a lot of airmail stamps because maybe they overprinted not enough, and they have to overprint lots more on different values. And there were stamps for the interior, which means domestic airmail, of course, and there were stamps for exterior airmails, which were for the mail going abroad, and the stamps for interior. Now, this is actually the first issue for the interior airmail with the word interior. In 1930, it was issued because of the extension of the interior airmail service ran by CNA. And there was a decree issued on the 3rd of December, and the stamps were issued on December 9th, 1930. It was overprinted on the 1926 Waterloo regular issue, and the number of surcharges was surprisingly not that huge. If you look at it, 25,000, and 10,000. It's not that many. I mean, and I think covers actually it's not. You can find the covers, but I mean, it's a great challenge actually if you can find each of them on covers. I think particularly this one, the 10 centavo is actually quite tough to find on cover, and the 1 centavo is always a made up value. It is always very, very difficult, and there are some errors. Of course, there's a double surcharge of the 1 centavo. And the 3 centavo, the surcharge shifted upwards, and double surcharge for the 10. So so you've got, as I said before, you've got the interior stamp overprinted the interior for the domestic airmails and exterior for the 1931, and there are a number of these overprints on regular adhesive stamps, which you can find in Goodman actually had a good descriptions of them and the errors, and then you can actually plate them because they they are, the positioning of the letters are slightly different. Yeah, so as I said, the additional overprints were made because some values simply ran out. Actually, the first commemorative airmail issue is actually the 1935 barriers. The three, there are 3 values out of the whole set of, I can't remember, it's about 12 or something. The rest of them are regulars, and only 3 values are actually actually for airmail. I mean, the commemorative stamps, but the first airmail, well, not quite first, pictorial airmail stamps, and is of course is designed by Hamy's his grandfather. Yes, and printed by Ashendale of Holland. So airmail rates. Well, according to Goodman's in Guatemala Book 1, the first mentioning of airmail rates was by decree on the 27th of November 1928, setting a 15 centavo per 20 grams to USA. And then the postal guide of 30th of June 1929 gave rates of letters, postcards, double postcards, etc. The rate is actually an additional fee on top of the regular postage. So you had to pay the air fee, which forms part of the postage. And then this very interesting postal memorandum, which is you probably all know what it is. And a lot of people actually said, some stamp dealers say it's a stationery, etc. And the prices vary from about maybe $10 to I've seen something like $200. It just shows you can get them at different prices. It actually depicts the first airmail surcharge for domestic and external airmails on reverse, which is actually more important than what it is. I mean that this little pamphlet. I would say I call it a pamphlet rather than actually a postal stationery, because these are not real. I mean, that's not real stamps. I mean, they just actually, apart from the 6 centavos, none of them were issued. I mean, you could see them in the colors in the essays which I show, and then with the Fokker plane on the reverse. Now the most interesting part of this letter, which was actually flown on one of the internal flights, actually flown, more of an, I think, like a postal document, I would say. But this is actually the most interesting. And I mean, I can't read Spanish very well, but I'm sure some of you could probably read it. And it's got the itinerary of the itinerary of the flights, and then you got Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 o'clock, going to Ratahulu, and you got the Forest Britain and Coban and Salama going on Saturday, and then the Zacapa and Puerto Barrios on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 6 a.m. This flight actually started at 6 a.m. But obviously this was in 1930. And I think Gabriel actually wrote something about the times of the flights actually changed. Times and days of the flights actually changed much later on when CNA actually renewed the contract with the post office. And actually the more important thing here is the tarifa. It is the postal tariff, saying that for the interior, for 10 gram or fraction of a letter, it was 6 centavo. See, and in all these places, you see, to Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, Belize, it was 15, to USA, Belize, and then into Costa Rica, Panama is 19, etc. So these were the first postal airmail fee in addition to the normal postage to these countries. So at least if you have some airmail covers going to these countries in the 1930s, these would be the rates. But these would be the air fee, in addition to the usually is the 5 centavo going to these places, and the 3 centavo going to the interior. And then this is an example in 1931 with the 6 centavo from Salama to Guatemala. Again, no airmail sign whatsoever, but I'm sure it must be sent by airmail because it's arriving on the same day. And probably they changed the flight time. The arrival actually is 6 p.m. And obviously the flight didn't take off at 6 a.m. I mean, it might be was on a later flight that took, but maybe the airmail label dropped off, or maybe that would be enough to indicate that it would be carried by air. And then, okay, so the cheap airmail rates, particularly for newspapers and underutilized airmail service, meant that the CNA was losing money. So therefore, the company suggested to the government that if the company reduced the carriage fees charged to the postal service, the government could further reduce airmail rates to attract more airmails. I mean, that's wishful thinking. Nowadays, they probably put up the fees instead of lowering it. But anyway, that's what they did. I mean, they reduced the airmail fee from 6 centavo to 4 centavo on December 1930. And then furthermore, the new tariff no longer required payment of internal postage. I mean, there was a big discount. So this is what it is. I mean, it's an example of that. You see it from Mr. Tenango, with the 3 plus 1, and then no other additional fees so it's a lot cheaper than before. But obviously, the rate did not last long because I mean, obviously, the CNA was losing money, and it went back to 6 centavos. But that was actually the weight step was actually increased to 15 grams, and then when CNA renews the contract again, I think in January 1933, it went back down to 4 centavo per 15 grams. And I think this rate actually lasted a long time. Lasted a good few years. So external airmail rates. I think the 1935 actually was a monumental breakthrough in Guatemala international mails, where they've actually given quotes to many countries other than Central and South American, including Caribbean, Asia, and Australian countries. There were a whole host of rates quoted in Goodman, but I'm not quite sure. But there were no dates or no details. I mean, I'm sure that there must be some postal documents and things around. You see, that's why I stress that one must actually go to the original source and check it out, and when actually those rates actually took place. And then, in addition to that, the rate changes of these between the 1935 and 1938. And there were issued the first set of regular pictorial Quetzal airmail stamps, consisting of 9 values for interior mail and 11 values for exterior airmail. Of course, that's designed by Hamey's great-grandfather, and was printed in Ashendale in photogravure. Now, Hamey's actually has got a great collections of these stamps. Actually, it is actually on our society's website. So and the resolution is not ideal, but actually, you can see. I mean, he has got some magnificent stuff, which you should see with the different the issues, and also all the missing Quetzals as well. It really is a very, very nice exhibit. So, and then following that, in 1945, which actually my actual collection ends there, it saw massive reduction in airmail rates to most countries, because TPAA gave a discount to the mail. Okay, so this is all about the little sort of introductions of the first airmail stamps and things. There are several things which is worth noting if you collect airmails. One is actually the express surface. Now, they're not common. It just all revolves around this hand stamp as a Visio Expresso. So in March 1931, this is according to Goodman again, and in order to speed up delivery of domestic international airmails upon arrival, so there were mailmen equipped with bicycles and motorcycles were delivering upon arrival of the airmail. They deliver the airmail in Guatemala City. So it appears that there was no surcharge to this at all. If you check this interesting cover, actually from Solola, that was by land because it was only paid 3 centavos, and then to Mr. Tenango, and that was redirected by air, paying the 4 centavo rate to Guatemala. Palace Hotel is a famous place. And then there's no actual extra payment paid. Now, if you go to the website, and there's another magnificent collection formed by David Fine on the auxiliary markings of Guatemala, and you can see that he has several examples of these Visio Expresso hand stamp. And I think according to him, these, I actually, before I actually studied his magnificent exhibit, I was wondering actually where this was struck, whether it was struck on arrival in Guatemala, or it was actually struck at the point of posting. So David seems to think that each of the major cities has a hand stamp like this. I'm not sure. I mean, that's why I think the airmail is quite fascinating, because now you have to do some research on. There's still a lot of things to be researched. I mean, this is just one example, and there are not that many around, because I believe that these were actually the stamp was actually put on a bundle of letters, actually the top bundle of letters. This one is quite interesting. It's got 1931 inverted here, but that's just a minor thing. So this is something to be researched. Actually, where it was struck, and whether there were different types. So the other interesting about airmail is a nocturnal. Now, nocturnal surface actually. One dealer actually some years ago told me there was a night flight. So I said, hey, night flight, yes, a nocturnal night flight, yes, it seems quite interesting. But then suddenly one suddenly think that, well, night flight in a hilly country, you probably need to have a radar on a plane. But I wouldn't have thought that they had a radar on the plane. So and then you can see all the flights were actually carried out during the day. So. And then suddenly I figure out that this must have been equivalent to to something called a late fee. And a letter actually posted after the close of the official, the official mail. And then they have you are supposed to put well, for ship mail anyway, you have to put a late fee on. And then, of course, if you collect a GB or something, you can see they have a late fee 1, late fee 2, late fee 3, you pay more. Later, you post your letter in a late fee box. But this is quite interesting letter, actually. It hasn't got the nocturnal hand stamp on it, but it has a little, well, you can hardly see it from here, but it says, recibida fuera de hora, received after normal hours, which seems that there must be a late box for letters to be posted with additional fees after the closure of the official mail which would be advertised in the local papers or something. And if you add it up, you will end up with, this is 1935, you end up with a 4 cent. So I think that this is possibly, you have to pay 4 centavos more as a late fee at that time. Okay, so I'll show you another cover, which has, in fact, exactly, it's in 1936 to Mexico. Okay, and it has a 4 centavo late fees on additional 4 centavos fees on the back. So interestingly, a lot of it is actually to foreign countries, which actually makes sense because sometimes if you were maybe from a commercial firm or something, and you have a busy day, and then you want to finish your everything, and you want to post it on the same day. Sometimes you miss the official closure of the mail, and then you want to post something at the last minute or something. And this one is a registered letter with a nocturnal registered cachet. This has been, I mean, I think David Fine has one. So, and then of course there's a small 24 millimeter CDS with nocturna included. So later on, now into 1939 now, you've got, this is to San Francisco, and then the fee somehow doubled. So you actually pay double the postage rate at that time and the late fee has doubled. So instead of paying 4 centavos, you pay double, whatever the postage, and you pay double. So this is something on the back and something on the front. And then this is 1941, made with a new one with a nocturnal hand stamp. This one with the date inverted, but there's nothing really rare. So actually, again, the postage doubled. By that time, of course, you've got the transatlantic airmail service, which I think which was 60 centavos. Actually, this paid the double 60 centavos rate, and then also a double UPU rate, which was 5 centavos times 2. The interesting mark is actually, there's a defect of the cover. The sensor tape was missing, which you can hardly see on the scan, but with the cover, you can actually see it. But the interesting part actually is this hand stamp, which David will be very happy that I'm going to finally pick up my pen and write an article for the EQ, maybe next issue, about this one. Anyway, wait for it. Okay, so later on in 1950, you actually got something actually saying porte double, servicio nocturno. Actually, it's a hand stamp struck on the letter, paying double the rate. But by that time, the airmail fee has reduced significantly after 1945, as I said. It's interesting. So why you collect airmail? Well, quite simply, there are lots of available collectible materials, particularly covers and stamps. But okay, stamps, you can probably find the sets not quite easily and quite cheaply. But if you want multiples, large blocks, they're not easy. Maybe complete sheets, I've never seen before. I don't know why. There were issues in hundreds and thousands. Maybe you guys find it in USA. I don't know, but you don't find them on eBay. You don't find them in auctions. To get a lot multiple is not that easy. So having actually said that, but covers there are many. There are many, particular even airmail covers with very colorful combination frankings of different Quetzal values and things. It's just a delightful and it's, if you collect something classics, classic material, and it's really quite cheap. well, yeah, I mean, you know, very affordable. And actually, for me, I think it's still the second part, which is the relatively unexplored, and there's the scope for much further research. For example, if you look at Goodman, Goodman 2 or Goodman 1, I mean, you know, the rates are really, it's just really very scanty. I mean, even the early rates, he has nothing, virtually nothing. And even the later rates, there's actually no for example, the date of a commencement or maybe missing some countries. For example, noticeably Bermuda is missing. I mean, there's no Bermuda there. Why? Because there should be, because because I've got a couple to Bermuda, so there must be a rate to Bermuda, but it's not there. So there's a lot of scope for research. And yes, and the prices of general materials are relatively cheap. And then also, if you are exhibitors, I mean, there are a few exhibitors in competition, which is maybe it's a good thing, because if you are exhibiting like the US number 1 and 2, I mean, you've got a lot of competitions, and unless your materials are the best, I mean, you're unlikely to get a very high award. But it doesn't matter. I mean, exhibiting is exhibiting. I mean, you're not really looking for award. But if you're looking for a good award, I mean, the less exhibits around, the better. But of course, there are cons on the other side of coin, which is the lack of references and bibliography. And then also that some signature items that the judges know, if you're exhibiting, they are quite expensive and not easily available. I mean, I've shown a few, like those stamp essays, and there's some errors. You know, the errors are not that easy to find, and there are lots of them. If you look at a Goodman, there are lots of them, and I suspect there are probably even more that Goodman hasn't recorded. But they are not easy, and they're not cheap. Anyway. So I mean, okay. So you can see you can see the references. You know, Goodman's our Bible. You know, our Bible, number 1 and 2, published by us a long time ago. And although it's been updated by works later, but there's still things missing. More importantly, is actually the articles in the EQ. Actually, very interesting articles, say written by David and also. Gabriel. I mean, they wrote very nice articles on Airmail. And then, of course, the standard American Airmail catalog. And then I think really, I mean, if you really want to do research, I mean, the best material and the most original material would be from the Postal Archive. I mean, I'm sure it exists, but the thing is, you need to go there and actually sit there for maybe a few days to look up for the records. So, collecting scope. Now, you can collect the stamps, the essays, errors. You can collect the first flight covers. You can collect the domestic airmails. You can collect the external airmails using commercial covers, postcards, or parcels, if you're lucky enough, or newspapers, if you're lucky enough to find any, to worldwide destination, for studying the airmail rates and routes. Or you can collect the postmarks and Shisqua markings. For example, there are lots of these. They're paid by air to New York or transatlantic airmail. The hardest one to find is the pay to San Francisco, which actually David Fine as a couple. I think it's really quite nice. And then of course, this is not directly. Guatemala, but obviously you can actually find mail from Guatemala actually going via transatlantic route mail, via the Zeppelin, with the censorships, the censorship tapes by the US and by Bermuda, by Germany, and the transatlantic mail actually was from 1939. Yes, right. Yes, when they have the flying boats, and there was after the Zeppelins actually flew the mail across the ocean. So you also got the military mail, official mail sent by air. So there's quite a lot of things to collect, and I think aside from maybe some zeppelins, which might cost you an arm or a leg, because there are so many zeppelin collectors in the world, the rest of them probably is still relatively affordable. Of course, aside from maybe the errors, and you can find essays. So exhibiting, definition, aerophilately is a study of airmail services, airmail stamps, and documents related to airmail services. So this is actually a definition given in FIP or APS. Is a definition of aerophilately. So it says that an aerophilatelic exhibit is composed essentially of postal documents sent by air, bearing evidence of having been flown and or airmail stamps and postal stationery with proof essays and airmail usage of the item. So you can actually combine mint, stamps, and stationery, stationery intended for airmail, proof and essays, as well as use envelopes in the same exhibit. Which is maybe more interesting than what the other two classes I'll talk about, which postal history, which really is just covers. I mean, and then you put a few first day covers or first flight covers, they probably crucify you for that matter. And then of course the traditional class exhibiting, and if you put too many envelopes and no stamps, they'll say that, you're missing all the great multiples and essays and things like that. So it's actually, it's a combination of those two. But, and then of course, one can exhibit in a one frame class, which is 16 sheets, or multiple frames, and usually in the internationally is 5 frames, and then after you've got a large format exhibit, you can exhibit 8 frames, and in APS you can exhibit 10 frames. I mean, or something like that. But now actually the FIP has introduced actually 2 subclasses, which is the development and operation of airmail services, which is actually what we're talking about. I mean, you can show some stamps, proofs, just anything related to the airmail service. And then the second subclass is actually airmail stamps and the use in the airmail service. I mean, this is more like a traditional philately. We're showing mint and used stamps and the usage on covers. So this is actually a new thing, which was, I think, introduced last year. Well, we talk about the first one, which is development and operations of airmail services, which is the I would say the original idea of airmail. And you can show postal documents like letters, postcards, parcels, newspaper, stationery, dispatched by air. Now, this is quite important, dispatched by air. So, anything sent by air would be considered airmail. But sometimes, in airmail, in aerophilately exhibit, items to be flown but not flown due to legitimate reason, like, for example, a train delayed, or the plane crashed or something without even taking off, something like that. That could be included. And then there were all types of postal and other markings, vignettes, labels relating to air transport. For example, airmail labels, you could use the special labels. For private airmail, you can show the private labels as well. And then also you can have other ancillary materials like maps, times table, flights, rate tables as well. You can use, well, obviously related to the subject. And even photographs, which I missed out. Yes, photographs of planes, particularly if you have a crash or something, have a plane crash. You can actually show the aftermath of the wreck, or maybe the newspaper cutting announcing that the tragic crash. So and also that you can show leaflet messages and newspaper dropped from the air. like the propaganda sheets, during the World War One, something, and the postal service during as a way of normal postal delivery, or when postal services are interrupted by unforeseen events. So mail recovered from the aircraft accidents and incidents, the wreck mails, and then the interesting thing about wreck mails is that there is a judging criteria called condition. I mean, obviously, all the wreck covers would be burnt or torn, etc. So that doesn't apply. But on the other hand, even if a wreck cover, there should be some kind of a marking, whether it is actually by manuscript or by a chop or something, that should be clear, and that would be actually account for the condition. The condition would be the condition of the marking applied instead of the actual condition of the envelope. So now this is the subclass introduced last year about just showing airmail stamps in the airmail class exhibit. You can actually show official and semi-official stamps issued, especially for use on airmail in mint use state, but also on covers. You can show essays, proof, varieties associated with airmail stamps and postal stationery. It could be a study of printing methods or reconstruction of printing or overprinting plates. It could be a study of varieties, watermarks, perforations, etc. for printing or overprinting errors. And then, of course, you have to show some usages of the stamps and with correct rates. So arrangement of the exhibit, well, obviously, you probably know about it, and the classic way is, you've got the 3 periods. You've got a pioneer period up to 1918, and those are the Ballon Post, the World War I trial flights, etc. During the World War I, after World War I period. And then, of course, you've got the development period, which is after World War I, up to the ending of the Second World War, and then the modern period, which is after 1945. And usually those are classified as 3 different periods. And then, of course, you can actually, each period can merge if the story actually is important. Storyline is important. That of course, there's no reason why you can't show the ending of a certain service up to 1920 or something within the same, maybe in that period, or maybe the service ending in 1947. So, and obviously the other method to show is by country, obviously, or by the route or airlines, like the Imperial Airways, the PAA, the Lufthansa, and of course also by service like the Army or Navy planes. And then you can also arrange it by the means of transport, like the pigeon post, or the lighter than air, they call it like the balloon or airship, or heavier than air, which is a parachute guide or aircraft, or rocket. But that's not astrophilately. Astrophilately is a different class. But each of these, the way that how you arrange exhibit must be clearly explained in your so-called title page, which is the introductory statement in the title page, that what you're trying to show. Well, the most important, which is the first page, is called the introductory or title page, or the first page or the front page, whatever you like to call it, which is something actually to tell the judges what you're trying to show, whether that is really purely for exhibiting purposes. And there are 5 things that you should consider when you construct the title page. 1, you have to state the purpose of the exhibit. Whatever it is, or you are showing, you're trying to show the wreck mails of Imperial Airways during a certain period. And of course, you have to tell the judges the scope of the exhibit, what period you're showing up to, and then how is it arranged? Is it by, if you're showing a general, for example, Airmail exhibits, are you showing it by different airlines or whatever, or chronologically or whatever? And then, and some highlights maybe. I mean, if you have space, you can show some highlights of the material shown. And particularly in USA, it is exhibitors often actually put the highlights of the material shown in something called a synopsis, which is actually also sent to the judges for study. Actually, it is just basically is an advertisement to show how many nice materials you have in your exhibit. It's very useful. But if you have a high power exhibit, and you have about 30, only known material, I mean, it'll be a waste of space actually to put it, you won't waste of space. You won't have space to put it on your single introductory page. And then also, of course, is the personal research and references, and which would, I mean, you on the front page, you would obviously show maybe the 2 or 3 most important references. The rest of them, you probably would use it on the synopsis page. Well, anyway, judging criteria and points used. The presentation, which is how it looks on the frame, whether it is cluttered or is clear, then you get a maximum of 5 points here. The treatment and philatelic importance. The treatment is how you arrange your exhibit, how you arrange your exhibits, and the philatelic importance is a little bit difficult because, especially in aerophilately, I mean. Some countries are unfortunately considered more important than the others, especially those countries with early airmails, for example, Great Britain or India, where their early airmails, or even United States, the importance would be very high. And then, but for Guatemala, maybe the importance, they will probably give you about 8. Because it started fairly late. A generous judge will give you 9 if you have all the important items, but usually they probably give you 8. But that doesn't matter because you can make up your points on the other things, which is this one, which is what I'm coming to is knowledge, personal study, and research, which you could do a lot to get all your 35 or 35 actually very rare, but usually unless you are Mr. Goodman, I mean, and very rare, but usually you can get, say, maybe 32 is already very good. And then of course the condition and rarity of your stamps or covers. If you have a stamp exhibit, I mean, obviously the essays and the errors would be considered a rarity, and then of course the covers, say maybe a first flight covers only 10 known, that would be considered a rarity, and you get 10 points from the condition and 20 points out of the rarity, so the total made it 100. So anyhow, so interesting, exhibiting actually and collecting is a 2 different game. But well, I mean, if you have enough material and then you like a try at an exhibition, why not? I mean, I think it's at least I think by exhibiting, what you're missing in your collection. I think that's the key thing. And then you start looking for them. Sometimes if you don't have the pressure of entering maybe an APS show in Chicago or the West PAX or something, you don't know what you're missing, and then and it actually gives you the pressure of doing more research or looking around for material. Anyway, so that is just concluding my talk on the airmails, and I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for listening. And I'm open to questions.